My name is Michael Waldo. My presentation is on the security vulnerabilities in desktop gadgets, primarily in Windows 7. My presentation is based on a presentation given at DEF CON 20 entitled We Have You by the Gadgets. The original presenters were Mickey Shkatov and Tony Kohlenberg. Now first we got to ask, what are gadgets? Gadgets are simply small apps that run on your Windows desktop. This concept was first introduced as Active Desktop in Windows XP and has continued on all the way to Windows 7. This presentation will focus primarily on the apps within Windows 7. The picture on the right hand side shows the examples of the default apps that come with Windows 7. These include a CPU monitor, a simple puzzle, weather app, RSS feed, clock, and a calendar. Now, why does this matter? The truth is, gadget use is in decline. Not many people still use these anymore. In fact, Microsoft killed the gadget feature in Windows 7 back in July of 2012. The default gadgets that came with Windows 7 are still available, but the Microsoft Marketplace to get more gadgets is currently unavailable. The important thing to remember is this style of app development is becoming more prominent. Developers are making it easier for people who have less and less experience in app development to develop their own apps. These people often have little or no experience in writing secure code, which creates massive vulnerabilities with their software. Gadgets themselves are simply zip files. More specifically, they are zip files that have been renamed to be .gadget. These gadgets are usually just web applications. They are usually written in all HTML or all JavaScript. Once installed, what can these gadgets do? Well, first off, they can instantiate any installed ActiveX object on the machine. They themselves cannot start a UAC prompt, but any apps that are launched by the gadget can start the UAC prompts themselves. These gadgets run as a standard user even if the user is in the administrative group. There are really two ways to attack using gadgets. One, attacking with gadgets, and two, attacking gadgets. Attacking with gadgets involves the user downloading and installing your gadget onto the target machine. This works the same way as many other pieces of malicious software. This is made simpler by the fact that people often do not think of gadgets as malicious or dangerous, and they often do not give a second thought when installing these pieces of software. Attacking gadgets, on the other hand, involves attacking existing gadgets. This is often done by going onto the internet, finding a gadget that already exists, and finding a vulnerability in it. It can also involve using man-in-the-middle attacks to intercept updates that are often done as automatic updates for the gadget itself. It is important to remember when attacking with gadgets that a gadget is just another piece of software. It's not news to anyone that if you download and run someone else's code on your system, that your system will get compromised. The biggest problem with gadgets is that people don't think of them as dangerous, and often they don't think of them as code. The truth is that they are just as dangerous and just as malicious as any other piece of software that you can find on the internet. Assuming that you can get someone to download and install your gadget, what does this mean? What can you do if someone installs your gadget? Well, you can't do much, but you can execute code. And that is really all that matters when trying to compromise a system. Once this happens, it's game over. You've owned the system. Other things that you can do, you can open URLs, you can create files, and you can read files. You can also make the computer speak, which can be useful in a proof of concept presentation. The demonstration that the original presenters used showed how their gadget was able to open Gmail, select all contacts, and create an email containing a link to download the gadget. The code that they used to create the email was only 16 lines, which shows how simple an attack like this can be made. The important thing to remember when attacking gadgets is that gadgets are code, therefore they are vulnerable. During the original presenters' testing, they found that a large number of gadgets that they found on the internet were in fact malware. They went so far as to say that a majority of the gadgets that they found were in fact malware. The gadgets that they found that were legitimate had a minimal use of SSL. In fact, the only times that they found that SSL was used was when the site that the gadget was accessing required the use of SSL. Another vulnerability comes with a small number of producers creating these gadgets. This means that a large amount of these gadgets share similar code, and when you find a vulnerability in one of the gadgets, it's very likely that that same vulnerability can be found in other gadgets that were created by the same developers. It was found that traffic that was sent from the gadgets themselves was easy to spot using traffic sniffing. It was found that all the gadgets that were used on a 64-bit system were using a specific HTML header that is only found in gadgets, so that made them particularly easy to spot. The gadgets pulled most of their content without SSL. The HTML and JavaScript were in plain text. The man-in-the-middle attacks became very simple, using a simple proxy. The proxy is not required to use these attacks, but the demonstrations did use the proxy to eliminate any variables that may have caused the demonstration to fail. Now that we've gone through the vulnerabilities that are caused by these gadgets, what can we do about it? The simplest way to prevent these vulnerabilities is to not use the gadgets. It's not news that downloading and running someone else's code is dangerous for your system, and it will eventually lead to your system being compromised. So the best way is don't take the candy from the strangers. These gadgets can also be managed using group policy. They can be turned off, which allows admins to completely disable the Windows sidebar. You can disable unpacking and installation of gadgets that are not digitally signed. Unfortunately, this does not affect previously installed gadgets, as well as those installed manually. You can turn off user-installed gadgets, or you can always take Microsoft's approach, which is kill the feature entirely. In conclusion, these gadgets are simply apps that run on the Windows desktop. Their main vulnerability comes in the fact that users often perceive them as being completely harmless. This makes it particularly easy for attackers to entice users to install these on their local machines. If these pieces of software are installed, the attackers are able to gain full access and full control of the targeted system. Despite these vulnerabilities, there are simple ways to prevent these attacks from happening. The simplest way is to not use any gadget that you find on the internet. These gadgets can also be regulated through the use of group policy by limiting or completely disabling the feature altogether. Microsoft has also done their part to secure this feature by completely disabling the feature on Windows 7 and not adding it to Windows 8. They've also completely shut down the gadget marketplace through Windows, so there is no longer the option to install gadgets through Windows. And finally, we have the YouTube link for the original presentation that was given at DEF CON 20.